war in Ukraine continues evolving in ways few military analysts predicted at the start of the conflict. Over the last several weeks, new battlefield developments have revealed how rapidly modern warfare is changing as both Russia and Ukraine increasingly rely on drones, long-range strikes, electronic warfare, and logistical disruption to gain strategic advantages. According to several military observers, Ukraine's latest operations appear focused on creating continuous pressure across Russian logistics systems and operational infrastructure rather than relying solely on large-scale territorial offensives. This strategy is designed to slowly weaken Russia's ability to sustain long-term military operations. Supply routes, fuel depots, command centers, transportation networks, and industrial infrastructure have all become increasingly important targets as the battlefield expands far beyond traditional frontline combat. Russian military bloggers have repeatedly expressed concern over the growing sophistication of Ukrainian drone operations. In several regions, coordinated attacks involving multiple drones launched simultaneously from different directions have reportedly forced Russian air defenses to operate under constant pressure. The psychological impact of these strikes is becoming increasingly significant. Unlike conventional trench warfare concentrated near the battlefield, long-range drone attacks create uncertainty deep behind the front lines. Military infrastructure, industrial sites, transportation corridors, and energy facilities can suddenly become vulnerable with very little warning. This changes how both sides think about security and resource allocation. At the same time, Ukraine continues benefiting from intelligence support and advanced battlefield coordination provided by Western allies. Satellite surveillance, targeting systems, and reconnaissance support have significantly improved Kyiv's ability to conduct precision operations. Russia, however, continues adapting rapidly as well. Moscow has expanded electronic warfare systems, reinforced defensive fortifications, and dispersed military assets to reduce vulnerability to precision strikes and drone attacks. Even so, analysts say the pace of technological adaptation inside the conflict remains extremely high. The war is increasingly becoming one of the first large-scale drone conflicts in modern military history, where both sides continuously experiment with new battlefield tactics in real time. FPV drones, AI-assisted targeting systems, electronic warfare platforms, and long-range strike capabilities are now central components of modern warfare. The implications extend far beyond Ukraine itself. Military planners across NATO countries are closely studying the conflict because many of the tactics being developed today could influence future military doctrine throughout Europe and beyond. Defense experts are particularly focused on how relatively inexpensive drones are capable of threatening highly expensive military systems and strategic infrastructure. This has already forced several governments to reconsider the future structure of battlefield logistics and air defense systems. Meanwhile, the economic pressure of the conflict continues, affecting both Russia and Ukraine. Russia has maintained high levels of military production despite sanctions, but doing so requires enormous industrial mobilization and financial resources. Ukraine, meanwhile, remains heavily dependent on continued Western support to sustain defensive operations and replace battlefield losses. As a result, time itself is becoming one of the most important weapons in the conflict. Both Russia and Ukraine appear convinced they can outlast the other side if enough pressure is maintained over a long enough period of time. This means the war is increasingly becoming a contest of industrial capacity, technological innovation, endurance, and political will, rather than purely territorial gains. At the same time, civilians continue facing the consequences. Air raid sirens, blackouts, infrastructure damage, and long-range strikes have become part of daily life across large parts of Ukraine. Russia has also experienced growing disruption in some regions due to Ukrainian attacks targeting strategic infrastructure. Several analysts now believe both sides are preparing for a prolonged phase of the war where sustained pressure becomes more important than major offensives. In many ways, the battlefield is no longer limited to trenches and front lines. Instead, the conflict increasingly extends into logistics systems, industrial infrastructure, transportation networks, and energy facilities. For Ukraine, this strategy may represent one of the few realistic ways to offset Russia's larger industrial and manpower advantages. Russia, meanwhile, continues attempting to maintain pressure through missile strikes, mass drone attacks, and continuous artillery operations. The Kremlin appears determined to convince both Ukraine and Western governments that prolonged resistance will eventually become unsustainable, but despite the pressure, Ukraine continues adapting. And that adaptability may ultimately become one of the defining factors of the entire war. Before we finish, I want to hear your thoughts on this situation. Do you think Ukraine's evolving battlefield tactics can significantly change the course of the war? Or will Russia eventually overwhelm Ukraine through superior resources and industrial production? Leave your opinion down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our latest updates on Ukraine, Russia, NATO, and major global conflicts as they happen. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next report.